guest today on the show is Ian Shoemaker. Ian Shoemaker is the head coach at Central Washington University. In his first 3 seasons, he led the team to a 19-12 record. Under his guidance, the Wildcats are averaging 32.8 points per game. Since his arrival, the Wildcats are averaging 387.7 yards of total offense per game. The Grinnell College graduate was a 4-year starter in both football and baseball and earned a degree in psychology. He was the football most valuable player and offensive back of the year and set school records for home runs in a season and career in baseball. Shoemaker is known for his use of technology and flipped learning to best help his players understand and execute the Wildcat systems. Coach Shoemaker, welcome to the Coach and Coordinator Show.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
All right, so let's fill in some of the blanks. We know you were at Baldwin-Wallace College, now Baldwin-Wallace University, and we know you're at Central Washington. So give us a little bit of a rundown on your career, where it's taken you, and what were the things that you took away from each of those stops along the way?
Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up here in the West Coast in the Northwest Washington, and went out to a small school in Iowa, Grinnell College, played my ball there, played football and baseball, and then got into the coaching profession through an opportunity at Western Washington University in my graduate school years. I was a running back coach and tight end coach, and got a chance to get started there for the first couple of years. Once I finished at Western Washington, I went to St. Mary College. Now it's, I think, St. Mary University in Kansas. I was 25 years old. I was a head baseball coach and offensive coordinator of a startup NAIA program where I, helped build the field, set up the uniforms, do all the recruiting for that first class at 25, and didn't know how unprepared I was at that point, but it was a great year there. And then the head coach I was there with got the head job at Minot State University up in North Dakota. I had a great run up there, 3 years in North Dakota. Minot was a tough spot, but we got that place to where my last year there, we had a first-team All-American quarterback, running back, and wide receiver at the NAIA level, which is, in my coaching career has been, pretty unheard of, and I haven't been able to replicate that anywhere else. After that, I was, coaching both football and baseball, and got an opportunity to get out of doing that. That was a heck of a deal to coach both, be a head baseball coach and a coordinator, and still try to recruit and have spring ball and fall ball for baseball and all those things. So I decided to, kind of decide which way to go, and decided on doing the football end of things, and went to Kenyon College, a Division III school in the central part of Ohio. Spent 3 years there. Learned a lot as far as dealing with the high academic piece. Those kids that are coming in with that 27 average ACT on the football team, and dealing with numbers issues. We had I think 23 kids in the first meeting when I took that job, and tried to build that up. By the time we were done, had a pretty decent run, went 6-4 the last year there after they had been 0 for the years prior to arriving, and then was fortunate enough to get the opportunity at Baldwin-Wallace, and we had a 2-year deal there, and then my 6 years prior to coming to Central, I was at St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. We were in the national playoffs a few years there of the 6 I was there, and then had a couple of young kids while I was up at St. Cloud, and looked at the opportunity to get back closer to home, to grandparents and things like that, and Central Washington opened up, and they was fortunate enough to kind of win the interview and get the job here, and we're trying to set an environment for consistent success, which they've had in the past, and trying to keep that going here right now. And that's been my track, and that's what's brought me back to the Northwest.
So you really had some responsibilities as a young guy, being a head baseball coach and then being a coordinator. And I'm sure along the way you did some things that you look back now and say, wow, why did I do that? But what were some mistakes you made as a young coach, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I think, not having a system in place, having a a little bit more of a play-based idea, that combining things that didn't really fit together. We, even my time at St. Mary and then the first, years at Minot, we were, 21 personnel run, sprint and draw and power and ISO and things like that. And then, everything I knew passing game-wise was West Coast, 11 personnel, Washington State, Mike Price, 60s and 90s pass game, and we were trying to combine those, and those just didn't fit. So I think that was probably the biggest mistake, that we made along the way schematically. Obviously, there was a bunch of other mistakes on, how to build relationships and recruiting to, managing a budget, managing a staff. Those were things that I was ill prepared for and, tried to grow from and, trying to get this head job, after a long time off of being a head coach. I think that was a, important part of, just the leadership piece. At 25, I, could handle some things, but, there was a lot more to it than I was ready to deal with.
We certainly have a lot to learn from our mistakes, but I think also you probably received some great advice in your career as well. What's the best piece of coaching advice you've received?
Well, I think, and it probably goes back to well before even getting into coaching, but I was recruited by Frosty Westerly, who's a great coach out here at Pacific Lutheran, a Hall of Fame guy in the NAIA level, and, had a great run in Division III as well when the school transitioned, and, just going through that recruiting process coming out of high school and listening to that guy and then, reading up on him as we go through and things like that is his idea of making the big time where you're at. Never looking for the next job. I've been fortunate. I've only applied for 2 jobs in my career. I applied for my job after my GA at Western to get the job in St. Mary, and I applied for this job to leave St. Cloud to get back out here. Otherwise, all those other jobs have been, opportunities that have arisen from doing a good job where I was. Guys calling or asking about what we were doing or what I was thinking for the future. And, that's been, very fortunate track. I know that's not everybody's experience in college football. And,
right.
I know that probably won't be my experience throughout the rest of my career, but that's been my ideal thus far. And, do the best job you can where you're at, not looking for that next job. If that next job opportunity opens up and it's a better one, you have to be open to it. But, making the big time where you're at, I think is probably the best advice I've had, and kind of that singular mindset of just being focused on what you're trying to get done.
Definitely something that young guys want to pay attention to, because you could get caught up in that looking for the grass is greener opportunity and miss out on what's in front of you as well. And you just have to, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the kids you coach and the program you're in to really be there and be present, be engaged in it like it is the best job opportunity you have. So completely agree with that, and certainly a good piece of advice. So you've mentioned all these places that, have picked up the phone and called you. So obviously you have some area of expertise or something you feel like maybe has gotten you those opportunities. What would you say that is, and kind of what's become your philosophy in that area?
Well, I think obviously I've been an offensive guy. From the time I left Western Washington as a running back and tight ends coach, I've coached quarterbacks and coordinated at some level the passing game or the whole offense. So since I was 25, I've been calling plays everywhere I've been and getting a chance to make mistakes and grow and plan out the offensive plan and call the game on Saturday. So I've been fortunate to do that everywhere I've been, and hopefully getting out of that a little bit here. As a head coach, I'd like to try to not do that, but the last 3 years I've still been kind of just in that same mode. But philosophy-wise, we want to be a balanced team. That's play call balance has been one of the driving forces in my philosophy offensively. We want to be able to run the ball successfully, and we want to be able to pass the ball successfully. We want to be in a situation on down and distance, personnel group, field position, all those situations in a position where the defense plays neutral. I don't want a defense to be able to load the box with 8 to 10 guys on run downs, and I don't want guys to be able to drop 8 on pass situations. I want those guys to have to play neutral. Give me a base look, 6-man box and 2 high shell, and force them to play both sides of the field and all edges and all those things. And just, if we can be at the end of the season, close to that 50-50 mark, run pass in all those situations, there's times to build tendencies, so you can break them later. But, for the most part, we try to be balanced. And I think that's the first and foremost deal.
Sure. And you mentioned in your earlier days being kind of fragmented and having like a 21 personnel run game, having 11 personnel pass game. What have you become, or what defines you guys right now, I guess, schematically or personnel-wise?
Well, we try to play 11 personnel, or we want to have a tight end on the field all the time. That's been one of those things that provides us a lot of flexibility in the RPO game, gives us a little bit more gap scheme possibilities and those deals. We're probably a 40% of the time 2 tight ends on the field, 12 personnel. 60% of the time, 11 personnel with just 1 tight end and 3 receivers. But the philosophy of those guys have to be able to align in every formation. We have to be able to be open formations and provide matchup issues in 12 and 11 and not ever be limited in our formation in our play calling. So all of our tight ends, all of our receivers got to be able to line up in tight end positions. Our tight ends got to be able to line up in receiver positions and develop those types of situations that provide us the best matchups. And whatever that comes down to, is it a matchup in the passing game or a matchup in the run game? Is it an extra gap that is provided by, setting those extra tight ends in the game? Whatever we need, everybody's got to be able to do it. So we don't have formations by personnel group. We just have a personnel group on the field that can run all the different things that we have in our system.
You mentioned in tight ends, in the advent in this time of spread football, they've become kind of hard to find, especially in recruiting and as you move down the levels. I know at the Division III level, we always had to take guys who were bigger receivers and bulk them up, where a lot of those guys were quarterbacks. Some of them were maybe fullback linebackers in high school. What's that like at your level at Division II? Are you guys still having to convert guys, or are you able to go out and find them in recruiting?
It's probably a little bit of a mix. If we're going to get that 6'5" kid that's really going to turn into a 230, 245 guy, and that's, at our level, that's a pretty decent-sized kid. A lot of times that guy's going to come out of a conversion from a quarterback position or a big receiver, kind of growing into it. We can find good 6'3", 225 good football players, but those guys that are the next level, national level type of tight ends, we probably are converting a lot of times and stretching a lot of times for those guys, hoping that quarterback kid or that big receiver kid is going to be able to be physical enough. You do have to, take a shot here and there on a frame kid that, I hope he's going to be as physical as I like him to be.
And obviously you mentioned, 90% of the time you have at least one of them on the field. So what do you feel are the benefits of having that guy on the field rather than being maybe in like a 10 personnel or empty set?
I think empties, we run a ton of empties, don't get me wrong, but I think empty 0 personnel and 10 personnel at times can limit the gap responsibilities of the defense. It can, engage more of a blitz mindset where they know they can outnumber you protection-wise. I think with having a tight end, even if you're open, just having that in that pre-snap call for the defensive coordinator, he's got to think, this could be a 7 gap, this could be a 7-man protection, this could be something else that we have to deal with. And he's got to have a call that accounts for those other things. A sprint out package, a 7-man drop back, 7-man play action package. He's got to be able to defend all those things. Even if I'm going to go out and empty with 2 tight ends in the game or 1 tight end in the game, I can go a line and empty, but he has got to make a base call to start with and then try to get a check through when he sees the formation. And I think that puts us in a little bit of more of an advantage. I think adding, more gap scheme possibilities with power and counter and the RPOs that come off of that, just by moving that tight end around and off a line. I think, one of the things that's probably the biggest bane of defensive coordinators right now is what's their plan for off-a-line tight ends with the tight end slicing back or faxing back across the formation. So, again, most of the time we're in 11, that tight end's off the ball most of the time, just to add that, a little bit more eye discipline to the defense and force those guys to account for that slicing, faxing tight end.
Yeah, definitely. When you add that kind of dynamic to your offense, it becomes a heck of a lot more difficult than if to defend a 2-by-2 spread or a 3-by-1 spread. And I think also, exactly like you said, having the tight end on the field, but then using him in a different spot or being able to keep in that personnel group and go to a 2-by-2 spread set certainly becomes an advantage to you, both personnel matchup wise, but also I think in exactly like you said, getting that call out of the defensive coordinator where, he might be worried about extra gaps and staying sound and gap responsibility. It might stay away from some of the stuff that he would get into if he knew you were lining up just a 2-by-2 spread.
No question. Like I said, I think just that possibility of moving the pocket in a sprint out scenario, which we do a lot of, and running just some 7-man slide protection, basic, slide protection against all those blitz spots, I think makes it a lot harder on a defense coordinator to call that. Just have that possibility out there in the back of his mind. When I throw 4 receivers on the field, he knows all he's got to do is defeat 6-man pro. That's right. A basic deal. Now, obviously, you can get it done with 20 personnel, but that's kind of the same thing. It's the same idea in 11 with the tight end off. You're getting all those same protections that you would in 20. It's just not who we've been. We've just been more of a feature back, single back deal with tight ends instead of 2 backs, but it's the same idea. And I think that the tight end alignment a lot of times will threaten the 4 verticals a little faster than 20 personnel.
Flipping the switch a little bit and focusing on teaching. I mean, we all love to scheme and do those things, but obviously that's kind of a little bit more of the science of coaching. Looking at the art of it, the teaching side of things, what are some of the best things you guys are doing right now, you and your staff, to get the understanding you need to have that execution on game day?
Well, I think, and we've talked about this in the past, but flipping the classroom has been something that we kind of got going on at St. Cloud before coming here. So for about 7 years now, we've been videotaping our installation of all of our offensive information, from formations and signals and, the full installation of running inside zone or running an RPO or whatever that is, and videotaping all of that, breaking it up, putting it into our, huddle system, and then providing that to the guys the day before the actual installation meeting. And then we do a pre-assessment at the beginning of meetings a lot of times and just say, hey, what do our guys understand? A clicker test, if you will. We use a free software deal that you can use their phone to come in and take the test to begin the day. And
Socrative?
Socrative is what we've been using just because that's what we started with about 6-7 years ago, and I just haven't got away from it. A lot of the tests are still there. It's nice because, like I said, we're dealing with kids that, have a phone attached to them, and now we can ask them to, hey, take your phone out. Use your phone in this meeting to actually make us better, instead of saying, hey, trying to keep their hands off or their eyes off their phone. Take advantage of what they're used to seeing, and putting a test on there with, pictures of formations or questions about route depths and break points and things like that, I think is a big advantage for us. We have our kid now has access to the installation. As much as he needs it, we can stream it to them instead of giving it all a full playbook to them day one. We can stream exactly what they're getting. Our kids don't get playbooks; they get notebooks, templated notebooks, so that everything they do is that they are able to take home with them, and paper is a form of a note that they've taken.
Yeah, that's a great method of doing it, and I think you're able to hit those learning styles, all the different learning styles a little bit. And then also, I tell this to guys all the time, I want to do it this way because, we sit in this room, you don't get the opportunity to rewind me You know, you don't get the opportunity to hit pause on me and take notes. So we're gonna use our meeting times a little bit differently. We're not gonna sit here and lecture and present. We're gonna actually teach and get into it and have you guys up on the board and have you guys talk through film, or maybe we'll get a walkthrough. Or the thing I got into this year is for our offensive line, we created we call it a simulation room where we were using free 3D technology from Go Army Edge and projecting the defense up on the wall and picking up all our blitzes and run against movement and all those types of things with a Madden-like video game with those guys coming at them.
Yeah, no, I was always trying to find that thing that would help us out. Obviously, funding and dollars and cents and things like that kind of go into it at times, but the soccer tip is free. You already have Huddle. You already have the videotaping, possibilities. None of this stuff that we're doing right now, technology-wise, costs us anything more than having our Huddle subscription that that everybody's got to have. The one thing we did do this year is we bought drones. So technology-wise, best thing we ever did.
Oh yeah.
Bought 2 drones and are flying those at practice and filming it from one angle. So we actually save money because we have less money out to our work study. Because now you just need 2 people instead of 4 people to get wide and tight on both the offense and defensive field. Now we just have 2 guys flying drones, and the film is great. The view is Madden-ish. It looks like a Madden game. You're getting the full 22 like you do in the NFL. And then, like I said, it gets around and can move around quick and get to different drills. You don't have to worry about change. Where's the lift going to be today and what's our grass look like and stuff like that. So the drone deal was awesome for us. And, I would say we're going to try to, keep that going or even expand it.
Yeah, for sure. I actually wrote a piece last year on using drones, and a lot of it, and you'll remember this, a lot of it came from my time at BW when we would go to the Browns facility in spring and basically get that view with our guys way up in the rafters filming almost straight down on us. That was the best view, and you only needed, like you said, one view, and the view was actually much better than either of the separate ones. You could get a lot more feedback from those. So I keep saying all the time, it's a great use of your funds for exactly that reason. It's going to pay for itself in year one with what you pay out in work study to have the extra filmer to get the other view. So the unfortunate thing is you can't get those in the games because no one lets you fly them over the stadium. We're not getting it at game time. We still got to have a lift. We looked at it as probably about a $1,800 investment. And we were paying that out and then some with work study hours. So it wasn't a hard sell. It's a cool thing to sell to your boosters. Obviously I don't know if I'm talking to high school guys or college guys or whatever, but whatever booster club you're dealing with, it's an easy one to sell because, a lot of times those guys want to fly it for you even. Yeah. With the drones, where did you get those? Who did you purchase them through?
We did do them online. We got the Phantom version. I would have to get with our film guys to tell you exactly, but I think we just did them off Amazon, and they were a great deal. We didn't get the highest level. Phantoms come out with a 4. I think we're in the 3 range right now, but for us, we weren't going to be able to capture the level of film that was coming out of the 4 into Huddle anyway. So the 3 seemed to be fine as far as the resolution and all that stuff. I'm not the best as far as that goes, but that was kind of the decision. Like, hey, we can live with this is the highest that we're going to be able to capture day to day in Huddle anyway. So we didn't go to the highest, the newest model of the Phantom, but I think we got the 3 professional or 3 business level of the Phantom.
Awesome. I could go all day with this stuff with you, Shu. We'll have to talk about it in Nashville some more or whatever when that's coming up. But let's get into a little bit about your program. And I think everybody talks now about the importance of culture and building a culture. So what are the things you're doing to build a culture in your program?
Well, the first thing when we got here is we asked our kids to build a core value system. We asked them to define what it meant to be a Wildcat in this program. Tried to harken back to, some of the past where they've had great success. And we've tried to bring speakers in, kind of like we did at Balls and Wallace, Coach Snell did a great job of doing that, and I kind of did that same thing here. And alumnus come in and speak on the field before walkthrough on Friday and try to keep those guys around for the game on the next day. We've had some success with that. But the core value piece was really good for us. I'm looking at it. It's on my wall. We have them defined. We have 5 core values, and the way we did it is we broke our team up into 10 small groups when I first got here. Had those guys go out. We did some scavenger hunts, some, team building activities and things like that, some silly stuff to kind of get them going. And then we kind of, cherry picked 10 words that we wanted them to define that we thought were important as a coaching staff. And then we defined those, each of those small groups defined one word. And then we brought those definitions back from the team to the, from those each small group teams to the bigger team, and then presented them, and each group presented their definition of those words. And then we decided to vote on what they thought were the most important. And it was kind of a pretty clear delineation of 5 words that kind of took over. And, the first one is loyalty, integrity, selflessness, relentlessness, and then having grit. And those are the 5 words that are our core values that we, work on, we talk about each week. We use kind of one a week this year and rotate them through, just like, hey, this week's going to be about, how selfless can you be this week for your teammates and those things. We go into homecoming week, it's about loyalty. Look at all the people coming back and, spending time with us in our university and, how loyal they are. And we're trying to develop that type of atmosphere and that type of experience for our kids so they have that feeling when they want to come back when they're older and be great alumnus of the university. And, the grit obviously is a big tag word now. But I believe in that idea that it's not always the most talented guy. It's the person who's, willing to persevere and put the time in and all those things. So, that's kind of how we built those core values.
Obviously, the culture is so important. It's as important or more important than what you're doing on offense or defense. And it's going to get you through those tough times when you face them. And obviously, every team in this sport is somehow going to face adversity every single year. So I think it can't emphasize enough the importance of building culture. Within your team, obviously, your staff is important. What are some of the things you do to build and keep that staff together? Obviously, you want to keep those guys happy and working together and on the same page. What kind of things do you do as a head coach to ensure that happens?
Well, the first thing is I try not to meet a whole bunch. That's one of the main things is, hire good people that you trust to do the job that you're asking them to do. Make sure they understand what that job is, what it entails, and then get out of their way. That's my biggest thing is, I want to make sure that I have people that I trust can get it done. And, if I don't trust them and they're not getting it done, then that's when I have to step in. I think I probably have some of the, getting that, it's still that assistant mindset of, time spent in a meeting sometimes is wasted time and just the time for the head coach to talk to people or at people. And, I'd rather my defensive staff to be working on the game plan or, breaking down an opponent than sitting here listening to me talk about, travel, which, I can talk with that individual guy about that and we can proliferate the information, at a different time in a quicker manner or through text message or emails and, pamphlet or whatever it may be. So, that's probably my first and foremost is I don't want to over meet. We'll meet as we need to, recruiting with the last few days we've been, hammered in the office watching the film and setting the board and making sure we're, planned out for where we need to be and where we need to go. But, as far as like those day-to-day meetings in the off season, those day-to-day meetings during the season, we probably meet twice a week during the season. But other than that, those guys know what they're supposed to do. They have a workflow that's set and by the coordinator or myself. And, those things have to get done, and then you're getting it done in a timely manner, and we're winning football games, and everybody's happy. Then that's a positive. So I think it's more about people and choosing the right people more than anything, and then letting those guys, providing them what they need to be successful.
Yeah, the servant leadership piece, really getting guys to understand that it's not about you, right? It's about the guy standing next to you. It's something I think I've emphasized for quite a bit And I know I've heard that from you before. It's obviously a great way of teaching guys the importance of leadership, whether it's a player or a coach. You got to serve the people that you're working with. And I think it's important to use that term rather than you're working for someone or someone's working for you. You're working with those people. You work with people, not for them or expect them to serve you. It's always got to be the other way around.
No question. I think, the difference between, kind of the tip of the spear leadership and the foundational leadership, probably more lean towards the foundational leadership. I want to be the guy pushing people from behind and providing them the structure and the foundation to get what they need done, and then let those guys grow and be, motivated from, their successes as we go forward.
All right, Shu, we're going to get into some X's and O's here a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about a go-to play, right? What is the play that, maybe is your signature play, the one that you're going to call 15, 20 times a game and basically say, hey, we're going to out-execute you. What is that play? And kind of explain it with some key coaching points.
Well, I think, in the passing game, you look at a basic three-step concept. And we stole this from Ohio State back in the day when I was, I think, at Kenyon probably, watching them practice. And it's a combination of the Noel Mazzoni stuff and then some of the, trestle stuff that he was doing. But in our Indy package, in our speed up 2-minute package, we have a basic 3-man scat concept with double slants on the backside, tailback. So open 2x2. We can do it out of just about any 2x2 variation, but we're on an open 2x2. We're going to swing the back, make him the third man in the scat, or sneak concept as we call it, with number one receiver from that side running the 6 to 8 yard over route of the flat defender. Number two to that side running the corner route, building your 3-man flood to that side, and then the double slants, squeeze slant from number 2, and a read tempo slant of number 1 to the field. And again, like I said, a lot of times I like the sneak, the 3-man stretch into the boundary and the double slant to the field, just because I think the space is better for the double slant, and I think it puts the a true Mike backer in a real bind. Am I opening to the field or am I opening to the back? And I can put that question in his mind. It makes the read a lot quicker for the quarterback of which side am I working. For the quarterback, it's pretty simple. We're just kind of reading the Mike, and what we call a Mike eval. Mike opens to the back into the boundary. We read the flat defender to the double slant. If the Mike opens to the double slants to the field, then he reads the flat defender on the scat, sneak route, and the stretch swing of the tailback.
Got it. And for you, a play like that is your go-to. How many times a week you're going to make sure that's scripted in practice?
Well, if it hits the game plan, and again, like I said, it's an interesting play because it doesn't always hit the call sheet. It's more in our ready list of our tempo and Indy plays or our 2-minute plays. But that will be something that will probably get 7 to 8 opportunities during the week at practice that we're getting that thing called. Much higher levels of investment in the spring and the fall camp, where that call is just getting rotated in over and over and over in all of our 2 minutes Indy speed up tempo sessions in the spring and the fall. And then when we get into game week, we're a little bit more prepping those, change ups and different calls that we've set for the week and for that opponent. But we will catch it probably, 6 to 8 times during the week between a Skelly session and a team session.
Got it. And as far as, variations in that, I guess, how do you try to get your playmaker involved the most? Is there one of those routes that you feel is going to come open more, or do you just count on the defense reaction and your quarterback getting to the right spot?
Yeah, our biggest thing is our read progression takes us to the guy, and we want to make sure we have enough skilled players to, provide us an opportunity to hit a lot of different spots. Obviously, when we set our Indy package, because it's one formation, one kind of direction and all that stuff, once we set our Indy package, we're trying to say, okay, hey, the tight end is going to be the squeeze slant guy. That's all he ever practices, on this play. And the Z receiver is always going to be the tempo slant, so he's always working on that. The X receiver is always going to be the scat player. Our slot receiver / B receiver is going to always be the corner route. So, when we run that, in our route timing, you're probably getting that, probably 20 times a week in practice in route timing. But they're always, those guys from the time they've got here, all they've run in that Indy play is those individual routes. Not right and left, not flip, not X doing this and Z doing that. Now they need to learn the idea and the concept if we want to change it up. But when we call that Indy play, it's always that with those guys with the same break foot, with the same, movement. I think we probably took that a little bit from, the air raid guys and how mummies of the world and things like that, hey, this guy's always just going to work that route. Now, we're not completely vested in that because we will flip strength in our normal formationing. But in our Indy stuff, those guys just practice those concepts and routes every time in the Indy package.
Let's take this a step further. Let's talk about a critical situation now. So we're going to put you in time running out. We're about 45 seconds to go in the game. We're on the plus 30. It's 3rd down and 7. And we've been seeing a pretty good mix from the defense. So they've done a good job of mixing up coverages, fronts, adding some pressures in there. On a 3rd and 7, time running out, we got to get points on the board. We got to score a touchdown. What are you calling in this situation? Is it one with 2 downs to go, with the time running out, you going the whole way? You're picking up half now to get the 4th down conversion. What do you think you're going to do in this situation?
Well, if we have enough, like I said, if there's enough time to get 2 plays, if I had a timeout or whatever that may be, I would probably go down distance efficiency and treat it as a 3rd down or a 2nd down efficiency. So I would look at it like, hey, I need to get half the yards I need here, and I'm going to go for it on 4th down regardless. So, sometimes that may be a tunnel screen or a quarterback draw RPO with the out throw or something like that, just to say, hey, I want to get 5-6 yards out of this. If it hits, great. I still have a timeout. I can stop it, and I'm going to go on 4th down anyway. So my 2-minute mentality on a 3rd and 7, 3rd and long goes back to a 2nd down and distance efficiency mentality, and just say, hey, I'm going for it on 4th down regardless. So treat it as an extra 2nd down and a 3rd down coming up on the next play. If it were a time where I didn't have a timeout and things like that, we probably run one of our Indy plays, which is, a comeback at 1, a 15-yard comeback at 1. We'd have a 12-yard spot up at 2, and a 2-by-2 open formation again, and then to the opposite side would be a smash change with 1 running the stem corner, number 2 running the arrow route, and I think that gives us 2 guys spotted up at 12 to 15 yards, where they can break and get out of bounds or whatever that may be, and it also gives me a kind of a cover 2 and man beater to the other side with the smash change. That gives me a corner route in a one-on-one scenario as well. And it gives me a hot out to the flat quickly with a number 2 going to the arrow, so I can get him out of bounds. If the blitz comes or they outnumber us, I can get a quick throw out built in, so I don't have to have hots or anything prepared with that. We just have our way to get out of it with built into the concept. And pretty easy read for the quarterback for us. We'll just look at the 12-yard spot up by the tight end. If there's any type of compression, meaning, in our terminology, it would be like a cover 2 compression where there's a Sam walling the spot up and a corner, low on the comeback outside, we'll spin our eyes back to the smash change. Otherwise, we work inside out of the spot route to the comeback against 3, against quarters, against man, against everything but a cover two compression to the spot and the comeback, we'll spin our eyes back to smash. Everything else, we just work spot and comeback.
Got it. So you really could pick up a nice chunk there, or at least put yourself in a manageable situation. So you kind of have the best of both worlds there. All right, Coach, we're going to finish up here with what I call a 2-minute drill. Just some kind of random questions here real quick. What's a book you'd recommend to our listeners and why?
Well, I'd say the first thing, and this is, a little probably cheesy, but any book that you can read with your kids. I think that's the hardest part that I have, during this time of the year, being seasoned into recruiting, is just finding a time to, read a book with your kids, spend some time with them. So that would be the first thing that I would prioritize, is not maybe individual reading time or reading time for my profession, but reading time for the family, I think, is key. We read as a program, we brought in Daniel Rodriguez, who was a receiver for Clemson, who fought in Afghanistan. He came in and talked to our team this year, and he has a book called Rise, and it was just about his fight and his battle in Afghanistan from that experience, and then going on as a walk-on and being a receiver at Clemson. And pretty, inspirational story. A minority kid coming from a tough, upbringing to the military to, not having any high school film really, and just turning himself into a guy that got into camp with the LA Rams, and was a great story. I think the book is pretty cool. We presented it in our leadership, one of our leadership breakfasts. So that was a good one. What's
something you guys always talk about, if you take one thing from a clinic, then it was worthwhile going there. So what's something you've taken from a coaching clinic and been able to implement?
Well, I think, you look at, just time management at practice, making sure that, how you're practicing and things like that. But, I was able to go down to Texas and just kind of watch a little bit of how they practice. And this was, years back. But, getting a chance to watch those guys practice, the efficiency, the music, the walk-through tempos and things like that. I think, clinics are great, but, just getting to watch people work and what their practice look like in the spring is really key.
What's a specific on-field technique, scheme, or play right now that maybe you saw this season that you're excited about learning more about?
Well, we've ran this last 2 years a bunch of the hitch-boot, and we got the single-man hitch concept with the boot flood concept away, and have really, gone to running that a lot. We're calling that, that may be our new, kind of Indy play, but we did put it into our Indy package. We ran it a ton, had a lot of success, and still trying to learn more about the route combinations that can go with it, and kind of how we continue to formation it. But it's a pretty dynamic play. We're running single-man hitch and then booting the whole group away and running flood concepts the other way. So I'm really, something I want to make sure that we're, even more dynamic with in the offseason would be hitch-boot right now.
What's a major concern you have about the future of our game? We hear all the time about, the safety issues, concussions. We hear guys screwing up, whether, even at the local level, high school guys all the way up through the pros, and all these things get in the media. But what's a concern you have for our game right now, and maybe some things we could do to solve those problems?
Well, I think, and I touched on it a little bit earlier with the technology piece, but, this idea that these kids are worse than we were or worse than the generation before or something like, nah, man, they're just different. And I think the thing that we need to be able to do is tap into the things that are important with these millennials or Gen X or whatever you're calling them, this timetable and things like that, of kids coming up right now, and not trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole. How do we tap into these guys? They are so much more intelligent. They have so much more access to information, all those things. Their attention spans are shorter because they learn faster and have access to more information. And what do we do, and how do our, the coaches in this profession continue to tap into the greatness that is available in those kids? I think that is the hardest part, because I see a lot of coaches getting burned out talking about how these kids are different or hard to coach or they're so individualized or whatever the issues are, the accountability to the, who's the most selfish, of these generations. Well, we got to tap into that at some point to make sure that this thing continues to go, and I think kids may start to lose that, love for the game if we keep trying to maybe coach it the way it was coached 10, 15 years ago.
Coach, last question here. What advice would you give a young coach looking to make it in his profession?
Be willing to be poor and put a bunch of effort into it early. That's everybody sees the millions of dollars that those guys are making at some of the bigger schools and doing those things. Don't do it for that. Don't do it for the money. Make sure you're in it for the right reason. Make sure you're in it for the long haul, and understand that, if you're able to do something that you love, you'll be a better husband. You'll be a better father, even if the money is not the same as what you can do somewhere else. And I think that's always a hard one to learn. It's a hard one to get through, but if you got a GA or you got to put your own money into it to get it started, and you really truly feel passionate about it and are going to be the happiest guy doing that job, then get it going and stick with it.
Coach, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate all the advice you shared, and I really like talking about the technology piece with you. I look forward to seeing you in Nashville and talking to you more about some of these things. And again, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a great mouthpiece for the profession, and I hope guys get a little something out of the talk today.
Thank you again for listening to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. Please, if you are enjoying the podcast, head over to iTunes or Spotify and click 5-star for rate. If you have a minute, write a review. It really helps the podcast. Check out our new home for the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. That's at coachandcoordinator.com. And follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.